I heard of a case just this weekend where the wrecker company gave the widow a card and says, look, if you call this lawyer, we won't charge you for towing or for storage. Well, now somebody's getting paid off, and that is illegal, and it is a felony. I don't know who it is, and I'm not going to be involved in that case, but things like that. I heard of another case where a runner showed up at the scene of a very serious accident, people killed and hurt, took pictures before the police got there even, left the scene of the accident, went at 4:30 in the morning to the widow's home to tell her she was a widow and that she needed legal help. Well, that to me is something that shouldn't happen.
Well, I mean, ladies and gentlemen out there, what you're hearing is perhaps not news to me as an insider, as a lawyer, but I think it's news to reporters. I think it's news to the common folk out there that are just like us, that work for a living, and that you come home and you are, and there's a big difference. A lot of people say, well, we're used to it so much because we see, I've done commercials, I do this show, Mr. Edwards brings out his message on TV, and they say, we see lawyers all the time. We're bombarded by lawyers all the time on TV. What's the difference between somebody going out there? There's a big difference because you're preying on people unsolicited, knocking on their doors, going to the funeral homes, and a lot of this should be investigated. And I hear of funeral directors being on the take, as you said, policemen, firemen, justice of the peace, people that are pronouncing people dead in rural areas. And then the international cases, as you said. I mean, this is on a grand scale. I've even heard that mob ties, like in other countries, run the cases or control them, contact attorneys from this side, and deals are cut.
And I've heard the same.
And how do you combat that? I mean, when you started this, I mean, I'm sure it's not down here, it's not a popular thing to do. To do that, a lot of lawyers are saying, well, all it's going to do is the net effect will hurt the legal profession. How do you respond to that?
Well, that's like saying that surgery to cure cancer hurts the individual. Yeah, it's destructive at first, but the result, if you save the victim, is worth the pain and the effort. It just got to happen because we keep going downhill. That slide's got to stop, and I'm going to do whatever I can, make whatever contribution I can make to stopping that slide.
Well, and a lot of people out there right now may have been solicited in the past or have settled cases and gotten proceeds from them minus 40% in attorney's fees and expenses and everything, and maybe they were solicited at a funeral home or something, and a lot of these guys are very sophisticated. They put on their contract, I hereby certify by signing this that I have not been solicited or contacted by a lawyer or his agent. Now they're putting it on there. So how do you get around that when the family comes and says, but that's not true, Mr. Edwards. They did go to the funeral home. We never even called them. They knocked on our door. They said they'd buy the Elvis Presley coffin for $20,000, and they'd pay for, $500 in flowers and plus, give the family a little something in their pocket to get the ball rolling. They've been working on them. They've been calling them. But they said, but King's X, look at this contract. You can't go King's X because it says here, we never solicit them. How do you get around something like that?
Well, it gets down to being a matter of who the jury is going to believe, and that has to do with the circumstances surrounding the contact. And I think in most cases, somebody's going to tell the truth because there's never just one person involved. There are several. And that's one of the beauties of the system that we have. The adversarial system is that we get to look at all of the facts and show the jury all of the facts from all the people and allow our jurors, who are pretty darn good, by and large, judges of the credibility of witnesses, to decide who's telling the truth. It's not always easy, but just because it says in the contract, I wasn't contacted like this, like I'm saying, doesn't mean you weren't contacted like you're saying, and doesn't mean that you're going to lose either face or case or anything else by telling the truth.
Well, and there's other evidence. A lot of people, I tell people, you like football? We all like football, And I always tell them, filing a lawsuit is kind of like a football game getting started. They kick the football field, the plaintiff lawyer kicks it down the field, they answer, they say you're full of baloney, we did nothing, and then a bunch of paper shuffling happens, depositions, and then try to mediate the case, and then try to go to trial, which is really toe-to-toe, goal-to-goal. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. And I do also have faith in our jury system. I think that it's the best system in the world. I think being judged by your own peers, right or wrong, it's better, in my opinion, than being in front of a 3-judge tribunal, like in a lot of countries. But this has got to stop. This solicitation, and part of my show that I'm bringing on is underlining this message that it's horrible for all lawyers when people can come back and say, I was solicited, all lawyers are ambulance chasers, and it does benefit the profession. Have you coordinated your efforts with politicians or with the Bar Association? Or, how are you coordinating your legal team to really try to get out this message?
Well, the thing that we most recently have been trying to do is get some legislation that will give lawyers who want to help the system some tools, because the laws that we have in place and the lawyers' rules that we have in place have not been really effective. They're very difficult to deal with and to handle. And it appears to some of us that putting tools in the hands of private lawyers who want to stop the illegal activity in the form of civil causes of action will give us that help. Now, some of us had a bill in this last Texas legislature that would have created a civil cause of action for this kind of activity against the people who engaged in it. It got all the way through the conference committee. In other words, it passed both houses, got through conference, and then somebody, when they're going to vote on the conference committee report, which would have been the last step before it went to the governor, started saying, well, the way that we got there, it was not germane to the bill on which it was attached. It didn't relate properly to the bill to which it was attached. We had to do that because there were lawyers, in my opinion, lawyers who had an interest in keeping the status quo, stopped it. Now, we're going to continue to try to get those tools in the hands of private lawyers by continuing to press for the legislation of the type I'm talking about.
Well, that legislation, again, a lot of lawyers, plaintiff lawyers may say, well, wait a minute, if we do that, won't they attach other things to it that may limit attorney's fees and things like that the legitimate lawyers have worked hard for? One of the buzz that I'd heard is, well, we open that door, then they're going to try to limit attorney's fees, and then nobody will take plaintiff cases on contingency, meaning that if they don't win, the lawyers don't win anything because the contingency fee will be low. Was that a myth spreading out there saying, no, we can't have this because it'll open the door for even more limiting of separating lawyers from their clients?
Well, the large corporations, the big money interests, always want to limit contingent fees. And they want to do it because they don't want people like you and like me to have good lawyers.